Hi, and welcome to Schmooze with Suze. I'm Suze Montgomery, your host, and we have got a show that I've really been excited about doing for a long time. Finally got these guys pinned down. We have Mike Powers, the new CEO of the County of Ventura, and Alan Hammerand, who's coming back to tell us what's going on with probation. And believe me, in the last couple of days, a lot in the news. So this will be kind of fun to yak with them and see what's happening. But before we do, I resurrected this little beauty out of the office at home, and it's the Do the Right Thing Award. Terry Weezer, our friendly leader over here that directs the show, made this for me quite a few years ago because we used to end shows with Do the Right Thing. So when I was looking at this on my desk, I'm thinking to myself, you know, the country is in chaos. Everybody's in conflict. The right's fighting with the left's fighting with the right, nobody's getting along, and we have some major problems. We're on the verge or the brink of collapse. We need to do something about this, and this is a critical problem, and it's all across the nation. We need to get along. Why do we feel so compelled to get our own way? Can't we compromise? We'll be right back with our guests. Stay with us. Hi, and welcome back. This is going to be kind of fun because I get to talk to two friends and be totally like I am in your living room, which I am anyway. But I've got Alan Hammerand, with no second H in that, back. When was the last time you were here?
I believe it was about two and a half years ago.
Was it that long ago? Oh God, it doesn't seem that long. Time flies. And Mike Powers, the new CEO of the county. Now, Alan's in probation. I wanted to bring him back so we could talk about some probation issues because it's all over the newspapers, and he's got probably one of the departments which are probably one of the hardest ones to administrate. I mean, I admire you for what you do because it's a lot of work, and we'll get into that. But a lot of you don't know our new CEO of the county. Now, Mike and I were trying to figure out how long ago we met, and it's probably about 30 years ago. You were just a child, and I was probably middle-aged at the time. But we had Mike come on because I think you need to meet who's running the county and learn about why he is the perfect person for this kind of a time because of his skill sets. I've known him a long time on a personal level, like I said, and I've always been impressed with his hard work ethics and his family. He's got a great family, and now he's married with kids, and we're going to get into that too. So maybe we should just start there. So let's see. I knew you back probably, what did we say, late 70s?
Yeah, 77, that's right.
God, a long time ago. So you were how old at that time? Young.
Yeah,
we'll
yes, just younger.
So you have gone through the ranks, but you were with the county and you left the county and then came back to the county. You've already been with the county.
I've been with the county almost 20 years.
That's a long time, and you were born in Ventura.
Born and raised in Ventura.
Okay, give us the bio.
That's right. Was born and raised in Ventura, and my family here, and went to school here locally, and then college down in Los Angeles.
Oh, you went. Oh, you're a local product even in LA.
That's right.
You didn't go out.
UCLA and then Loyola, which was great, but it reminds you how nice it is up here in Ventura County too.
And you came home.
Oh yeah. No,
and you started with the county in what department?
I started in county counsel's office.
Okay, so who was in your office? Anybody remember?
Jim McBride.
Okay, I remember Jim.
Noel Claybaum, Melody Kleiman.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great office.
And then you went from there to?
Then I went from there to the healthcare agency.
Okay, and then, oh boy, now how long were you there? I'm trying to remember.
13, 14 years.
Yeah, a long time.
Right.
And I remember before you took this job, and I don't know if you remember this conversation, it was when your mom was alive, and Mike just lost his mom in December of last year. And just to take a brief moment, Yvonne Powers was an amazing woman. And not only to her family, but to everybody she came in contact with. She had this special light, and I'll always be grateful to her for the time I spent with her too. So thanks for sharing, Mom.
Well, she really appreciated her time with you, Suze,
And I
definitely.
love your Mom.
Yeah.
Still talk to her. So
Don't tell on me.
I won't. No, and I remember having the conversation with you because at that time, I think your predecessor just announced that she was going to retire. There was a lot of speculation in the community, and I didn't know if you would be thinking about even taking the job. I'm sure you were approached at that time before we even had the conversation. But I always thought he'd be the perfect guy for the job. And you know, everybody, I think, collectively in the city of Ventura, but in the county too, breathed a collective sigh of relief when you took the job. I know I did. I know I did, because I knew you on a personal level. You know, not just professional, but personal level. And I've always been impressed by your integrity and your work ethics, which I'm sure you got a lot from your mom too.
That's true.
So what's your typical day like?
I appreciate that. I appreciate
you're
that.
welcome.
That's why they call her Schmooze.
No, this is mascot
Very good.
I don't lie about stuff like that.
I appreciate it though.
Only
Thank
about my
you.
age. But what about, you know, when you grew up in town here? I mean, your family, you've got siblings,
Right.
And I know you lost one brother.
Right, that's right.
And so who's left in town? Anybody?
My brother Tom and my
Okay.
sister Suzanne.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got nephews here locally as well. So yeah.
And your wife, and now you have your own children.
And I have, yes, I'm an old first-time dad, so I've got 2 little boys, 2.5 and 3 months.
And they're
So,
beautiful
thank
too.
you, yes, it's
You
great.
picked well. You waited and picked well.
Yeah, I got
That's
lucky.
an Irish thing.
I got lucky.
It's an Irish thing.
Right.
They get married late and they do settle down. But she's lovely, and you really
Thank
did
you.
pick well.
Thank
So hi,
you.
Erin. You're very lucky, Michael.
In many
But
respects.
But
yeah.
you earned it, I think. I think you paid your dues with the job. You ran all the departments that you did, and that's a huge endeavor, running like a county agency, like the hospital alone and the healthcare agencies.
Well, it was a good experience, I have to say, and it's a privilege to have it, just to work with the people there, because you know, I mean, they're so passionate about the work that they do and the quality of the care that they provide to people, and especially people who wouldn't normally be able to get access to care because of their uninsured.
And we have one of the best systems in the state of California, consistently rated really, really high.
It is, it is. Our whole medical community here, I think, in the county is excellent, public and private. But yes, our public system is very, very strong, and a great residency program too.
It's the best.
That's right.
Now, I always marveled at the fact that you chose public life rather than going into private practice or doing something else. And it speaks for the passion you have for people in general. I've always been impressed by that.
Well, thank you. And, you know, you know our county. This is a special place. I love this place, and being able to work at the county of Ventura now with the other departments as well, and with people like Alan, and who does a great job at the probation department. And you know, I think that's one of the strengths that we have here in the county, is that the departments work well together. You know,
but without proper leadership, Michael, and I know you're going to be embarrassed by this, it wouldn't work, because we've had it before in the past. I mean, it's not like it's something, you know, you are like a breath of fresh air. I mean, I'm used to, you know, government is always dysfunctional on any level, from national all the way down to local levels. But you've managed to bring a serene, calm peace to the county, and it seems to be integrated well, and you, just like you said, it does work well because everybody gets along, which is very unusual.
Yeah.
On a county level.
That's what I hear, you know,
Yeah.
but we figured there's not enough resources to do the work that we have to do, and it's important work, and especially now with the economy, more and more people need those services. And so we have to get along. We have to sit down on the table and try to figure things out, right, for the people that we're serving. And I think, you know, Alan will speak to this too, we have that in our department heads, our board of supervisors, and just throughout the county. There's a real team spirit.
And it's certainly something that isn't always the case in other counties, because in particular, I go to meeting with judges and they'll talk about having gone to statewide judges conferences and talking to their peers from other counties and talking about how they don't work the way that we do in terms of collaboration and working together and cooperation. And they say, yeah, they don't sit down and talk the way we do. They don't even communicate. And they talk about how refreshing it is to have the ability to work in a place where people work together, you know, work on common goals, and have, you know, a team effort in terms of how they approach things.
I think a lot of it is the leadership. I mean, you're setting the pace for them. But when we had you on the show the last time, I mean, the budget, you know, your budget wasn't as conflicted as now, and so you're having to do with less, but you have to still do and serve the same need and service a lot more probably than you did the last time you were on the show. What's your typical day like? I mean, what do you do? Just go in there and try to feel stuff all day long? I mean, as a manager, I mean, it's got to be crazy.
Well, one of the things we talk about now is is how it used years ago when the economy wasn't so bad. We had a budget process that took 2-3 months. We'd sit down and start working on the budget, and we'd work with the county entities and get things put together and come up with our budget. It would go before the board, and sometimes there was conflicts and issues, but pretty much over about a 3-month period, the budget would be done. Budget has now become a year-long process for us. We pretty much work on it all the time because we have a variety of funding streams, all of which are in jeopardy at different times. And so things ebb and flow, and we're always trying to prioritize which programs we have to save, which ones have to be pared back or eliminated, and it's become pretty much a nonstop operation.
Is that almost a collaborative effort with both of you? Did you have to sit down with like a management team? Is that how it's done?
Very true, yes.
Yeah, we look at the services that we have, and the analysis department will tell us here's the funding threats that are coming and what are we going to do if that happens. We do a lot of what-if contingency planning, but at the same time we don't want to just be reactive, and I think the probation department's an excellent example of collaboration and innovation, because you work very much to keep kids and adults out of jail, out of the justice system if you can. Very community-based, preventive
And I've just been reading
services.
that in the paper recently, too.
That's right.
Like, in the paper recently, they came up with some, really creative and innovative ways of dealing with your populations. I mean, the incarcerated. So they're looking at education. And I think a lot of it, when you look at this kind of thing, especially in the state of California, I mean, we got the highest, even the Supreme Court weighed in on this one a couple of months ago. When you have that kind of numbers, and because you have certain, let's put it this way, labor unions that are sometimes a little bit hard to work with. And especially when you see that kind of thing going on and you're conflicted, you've got handcuffs on, you can't do anything. But when it comes down to a local level, I mean, you're getting creative. You're thinking about ways of keeping people out of jail rather than putting them in. And I think, what are some of the new programs you guys are doing? Because I know there's new things that came down since the last time you were on the show. Is there anything specific?
One of the big ones we're doing, I think last time I was here, we talked about some of the programs that we were using to keep juveniles out of our juvenile facilities. Correct. And we're continuing with those programs. They've been successful. They've sort of set a model for how you can provide services in the community, and based on assessing the risk of the minor, make a determination on whether they safely can be handled in community with services provided there, as opposed to incarcerating them, which is much more expensive, and in many cases the outcomes for that minor are not as good if they have to be incarcerated. But in some cases, because the risk factors they present, you have to do that. But we've got some very innovative programs that we're doing with minors in the community, and we've managed to keep our population down in our juvenile facilities. We're now beginning some similar efforts, and have been for some time, with our adults. And the juvenile population is a little more amenable sometimes because they're younger,
right,
not as fully developed. But particularly with the young adult population, we're beginning programs to work on educational issues, employment issues, drug and alcohol issues, and we're looking at things that are established best practices through studies that have been done, and providing those types of services. And we have one specific program called our evidence-based probation supervision program, which was completely predicated on the theory and the practice that if we provide services to this population, we can reduce the number of individuals that end up going to prison. And we're having success with that. And as you know, we have both a prison overcrowding problem and a state budget issue resulting from how many people are in our prisons. So these type of programs are really essential to what we're doing, because it's very costly to put people in custody, and sometimes you have to do it, but if you can find ways to work with people in the community and provide programs that are effective, then it's a win-win for both sides.
Well, especially when you have conflicts like you have the Circuit Court of Appeals up, in San Francisco, where I don't think they've done anything, punitively in a long time. I mean, this cycle just continues. And then you have this overcrowding problem because California is considered pretty much of a lenient state as far as, any kind of punitive, assessments go. And when you see that happening, so that's a conflict. Jails are overcrowded. You got the 3 strikes thing that maybe should be redone. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, but just building on what Alan said, there are two things. One, it's evidence-based, which I think is very
Correct.
important, and the number of partners that you collaborate with in the community-based organizations like Interface, mental health organizations, alcohol and drug, district attorney, sheriff, schools. I mean, it's amazing, but it's the way it's supposed to work, and it really does, so hats off to them. Related to that, another innovative program is one that the sheriff has, because we've all heard about the mentally ill being in jail.
Correct.
You know, jail inmates who suffer from mental illness.
Correct.
And they shouldn't be there. It's not the best place for them to be,
No.
of course. So what can we do about that? Well, the sheriff, in partnership with the behavioral health department, with probation, social services, worked on a discharge planning project so that before they're discharged, they connect them to services, so that there's a warm handoff too, whether it's mental health services, social
That's
services,
new.
alcohol and drug. Right, and it's a pilot program that they're working on, and they've reduced the recidivism rate for this population from somewhere over 80% to down around 37%.
That's huge.
So yeah.
When
so
did this come about?
They've been doing it for about the last year.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
Who came up with this one?
I think it's the different departments working
You
together.
sat together and you actually worked
Sheriff,
collaboratively.
behavioral
Sheriff,
health, probation,
yeah.
again, a group
Brilliant.
of people talking about a problem. And actually, we've got a history. It's been well known to us for a number of years that the mental health population, mentally ill population,
Right.
have gone through a revolving door in and out of custody. And we've had a couple grant programs over the years that have worked on addressing this issue. And part of what is being done now is based on some of the things we've done in the past, but it's become something that's become now part of their regular protocol. And we think it has tremendous potential to stop that revolving door and to get people assessed while they're in custody and to get them linked into services before they're released. So as they go out the door, they're connected with somebody rather than being back on the street and starting their cycle all over again.
I think that's brilliant.
And I really want to credit our board too, our board of supervisors, because
Yeah,
they set the tone.
Good.
They highlight these issues and they really reinforce them to us. Yeah.
They're getting along. I mean, this is unusual,
that's
but
true.
they're getting along. But and
They are, and you can see it in the redistricting process.
this is going to be really interesting to watch.
Just the supervisorial
Yeah,
districts. It's
exactly.
a tough word to say.
No,
But
try it again.
you know, they did it very quickly. They you know, it was interesting, and they all had to sort of give up and trade off a little bit, but they did it. They did it very quickly and collegially. They listened to the community, and boom, it was done.
I'm impressed by
really-
them too. I'm a longtime watcher. You know, I'm a political animal like you both are, and I mean, you watch this because it really, you know, it's an interest. It's a special interest, but it also affects you in your real day-to-day living. We were off camera before, and we were talking about challenges. I'm going to ask you about that one too, because you are juggling 40 balls at one time, at least at one time, and it's hard to turn this off. I mean, when you are done at the end of your workday, which is probably a pretty long day, and you're just fielding, it's hard to get anything done because all you do is field all day long. You've got the internet going on. You're trying to catch up with your email, which you do at very late at night, I know. But you'd have to. Sometimes you just don't get caught up, and sometimes you feel like you're drowning. So it's very difficult, and I know you do the same thing. If you're passionate about your work, like you are, and you're dedicated to make that difference and to make it change, it's very, very hard. I personally, me too, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do this, but you never truly get caught up. I always have this, like I said off camera, I have this dream, this fantasy. One of these days, the internet's going to break down for a week. You know what would happen? Just think about what we could get done. We could get back to maybe talking to each other, communicating, and actually get some real work done. But until then, you know, it's a wonderful tool, but it's also something very scary. And that's just off the, off the record here, because I just have to spew a little on that. I want to talk about what Alan gave me before you went on. I was impressed by this.
We're very proud.
You
And
should be,
We're
for
very
recognized.
appreciative that the board takes the time. I mean, you talk about us being busy. Well, the board's very busy too. And they have a very busy day when they have their board hearing day on Tuesday. And when they take the time out to do things like this, it's very much appreciated by the people that put the time in to work with
Sure,
the
to
population they
recognize
work
your
with. And the board takes the time out. They recognize our staff, which is our biggest asset. And it's just something that is very much appreciated.
I think it's wonderful.
And that really is, I think, the strength of the county overall is the quality of our people.
You have great employees.
We really do, and we have a program we're doing to highlight something that's called Above and Beyond.
What is that?
We just want to highlight for the board and the community people who just in their everyday jobs, they do a lot more than you would think they would just because they care about what they do and the people they serve. And in fact, in the probation department early on, I went to one of your award ceremonies, which is really well done, and I heard about this new deputy probation officer. Well, I don't know, she's one of your newer ones, and she had a young charge who had to go have surgery and didn't have much family. She went on her off hours on the weekend at night, bought him books and games and so forth, and spent time with him just because she cared about him. It's not in her job duty. She didn't get paid anymore to do it. She just wanted she wanted to do her job right.
That's so unusual.
And that's one example, but there's a lot of those around the county.
Guys are.
Yeah.
Well, how many departments do you deal with? Do you know what the numbers are?
It's about 27 departments, yeah.
How many employees does the county employ?
About 8,100.
You're responsible for 8,100 people? And do you walk through and say hi to people? I'm sure you do, knowing you.
I try to. I'm trying to do more of that. It's something I think is very important. What do they call it? Management by walking around.
Yes.
But you know what? Because I very much believe in servant leadership. Because I'm not there, out with the probationers or with the sheriff or the doctors and the nurses take care of patients, fortunately for everyone. But my job is to try to support them, the people who are doing the real and the important work.
Well, you're obviously doing a good job, because I mentioned to somebody today that I was going to have you as a guest on the show, and they said to me, the one word about you that they came to mind, I said, so what's your impressions of him as a boss? He's approachable. Now that nice. For somebody of your level to have an open door, very unusual. We've had people before where the door was always closed.
Thank you for asking my brother that question.
Good. I didn't ask Tommy that.
Kidding.
I didn't ask Tommy that question.
No,
but I think it says something about you again too. I mean, it's your integrity and who you are as a person, both of you. I mean, it speaks volumes that we have good people. And people, getting to know you on a personal level is probably a little bit different as dealing as an employee would be. And I'm sure a lot of times, they're probably a little bit hesitant to speak to you. But I know for a fact, because I've been told, that if they have an issue, you'll talk to them. You'll sit down with them.
Well, that's why we're there, and I know Alan's the same way. We're there to support the people doing the real work, as I say, and that's part of the fun of the job.
I guess, but if it can be fun.
Well, it can be, but it's also important work, and it has to have a very positive work environment, open, where people can talk about issues, good things that happen and bad things that happen, because no system is perfect, and you only get better if people can raise those issues where there's a problem and we need to
they feel
improve
comfortable
something.
doing so. They
That's
don't
right.
feel challenged.
Yeah.
I know when I came to you, what was it, not too long ago, a couple months ago, to tell you about an idea that I wanted to implement, starting a new nonprofit for seniors, because you have the AAA, which I got to know Victoria when you sat down with us at our meeting, and about what I wanted to do. The door was open, you were responsive, you were open, you said, yeah, let's do it. I mean, you don't get that. I mean, it just is, you have vision, I guess it is. When you think about what you have to do as a manager, especially in your position, you have to be listening, you have to be responsive, plus you have to implement and you have to carry it through. And you have to have solutions.
Well, this was a natural connection, I thought, because Suze, who does such great work with our seniors in our community here, had not connected to our Area Agency on Aging Director, Victoria Jemp. And I thought, how did this not happen? So to put you two in a room together.
And it worked. And now she's on our board. I mean, I'm so grateful for that open door.
She's great. Yeah.
And I think it will, and I think that's, the seniors and our children, the kids and seniors in our population, the people that we live with in Ventura County, need to have protection. In between, I don't give a rat's, because frankly, you can find the services you need. You have the skills.
It's so perfect that you say that, because in our latest budget that we adopted with the board, two of the areas that the board highlighted to help to make sure we shored up was child protective services.
Yes.
Because that's public safety.
That's right.
And they shored that up, as well as in the Area Agency on Aging, to make sure that we're supporting case managers there who keep seniors in their home.
We did a show, do you know about Home Share?
No.
Home Share, we did a Home Share show about, I guess it was about a year and a half ago. And what it was seniors that probably were living alone, they lost a spouse, and they're living alone in their home. They've been there for a long time. Well, there's a lot of other seniors that are lonely doing the same thing.
That's right.
Why don't they sell that house, the one that whoever wants to make the arrangement, and they come and live with them? I mean, it's keeping them home as long as possible. Like, Marion.
Right.
Muffy to you and I. But Marion McLean is a friend of ours, and she also works with Sage Care, which is also for seniors in home health. And I think, I know the budget has been cut dramatically by the state, and it's reflected in what you have to deal with on a daily basis of juggling and moving those shelves around to trying to get everybody what they need. But it's very difficult to be able to make cuts, especially to those special populations of the seniors and the kids. But by doing, for adult daycare, gone. I mean, senior programs, gone. I mean, some kid programs, gone. But to manage that, I mean, when you look at that, when you look what you have to do, and relative to those two, like the seniors and the kid populations, how do you make a decision? And I mean, do you agonize over this? And how you obviously get help from people like Alan for, with the kid population. How do you make that determination, what you're going to do?
Well, I think we make it collectively. And it's not me, it's a group of people, it's the departments, it's the board giving us direction, it's the board saying, in this case of AAA, look, this, we have limited resources, but this is the right way to spend our money to keep seniors in their homes, out of skilled nursing facilities,
Correct.
out of nursing homes. That's how you do it. And when you see the priorities that are that clear, the question isn't what are we going to do, it's how are we going to do it.
Excellent.
And community-based treatment. It's
like
interesting,
that.
Community-based services, it sort of permeates everything the county does in terms of keeping people out of incarceration, keeping people out of the hospital.
So prevention.
Prevention, what a notion, right? So, for medical services too. Expanding our clinic base at a time when the economy's tough, and it's hard to do that, but when the community needs it most, to keep people out of the ERs and out of the hospitals and so forth.
I love prevention, and I love preventative measures. For example, Dan Hicks, when Dan and I started working on the alcohol thing in 2005, he taught me prevention.
Wow.
He's the one that, and he says, he goes, you're the bulldog, you lead the charge. And at that time he was working for a nonprofit. And it was like, oh, this is an easy one, that's a lob, I can do that. And once I got it though, I had to understand what prevention is. And prevention's so different from remediation or dealing with things at hand. It's actually working before we get there.
Getting out ahead of it.
Exactly, and don't you deal with that every day? Don't you you have a prevention, some kind of program with that too, don't you?
We do. We have a number of programs that are aimed at prevention. But I wanted to real quickly make a comment on Area Agency on Aging, because in terms of collaboration, we've got a really wonderful one going on with them. We have some space behind our juvenile facilities that is not being used yet. It's available if we ever needed to build out, but that at this point is not necessary.
Really?
So Victoria and our department got together, had some discussions. They were looking for a place that they could plant tomatoes to use in their senior nutrition.
Really?
And they said, we heard that they work with Food Share, which is right around the corner from where we are. And they said, gee, we realize you have some land. Any chance we could maybe use that land? And we now have a garden back there being run, and a number of local farmers and individuals came together, donated materials, seed, machinery, and because it was pretty rough, rocky land, and they made it into good farmland. And they're now growing tomatoes back there, which they use in the senior lunches, and now they're looking at expanding that into some additional crops besides
I love
that.
this.
So it's a wonderful opportunity where people came together, saw a need, and came up with a plan that uses something that fulfills people's needs.
I am impressed. We're going to have you guys back because I think there's going to be more that I want to, share with our audience. Thanks for being here.
Oh,
It's
thank you.
good to have you back. I
Always
miss you
good to be
during the
here.
morning working out, and I love to have you back. You're
Thank
part
you,
of the
Suze.
family.
Thank you very much.
I just
Thank you
enjoy
very
having
much.
you both. You're just great. One last thought. I'm going to make this very brief. I want to talk about the Patriot Guard with our friend Don Pine. The Patriot Guard, regardless of your political persuasion, as a bunch of motorcycle riders that go to funerals and go to events for our veterans. So thanks to them and thanks to what they do to make it a better world. We'll see you next week and join us again.